bulletins. But voters in Sierra Leone go to the polls today to elect the successor of President Ernest Bai Koroma after serving a maximum 2 terms. Today's elections is the 4th since civil war ended in 2002. Voters will also elect members of parliament to fill 112 seats in the 124-seat parliament. The other 12 seats are reserved for paramount chief members of parliament across the country. My colleague Joseph Akable joins us with some facts about this election. So Joseph, what more should we know about this election happening today?
So first, we have about 16 candidates who are contesting the elections, with 2 women part of the 16 contesting the election. The interesting thing about the Sierra Leonean system, just like the Ghanaian system, you have 2 main parties that have ruled the country since 1961. So you have power alternating from each of them. So you have the All People's Congress, which is the ruling party now, and you have the Sierra Leone's People's Party, that is the opposition party that is seeking to win this particular election. The interesting bit is that within the APC, which is the ruling party now, about 28 individuals contested for the flag bearer race, but an ex-foreign minister who is part of the race was anointed by the current president, Kamara, giving him his support and asking him to lead the party into victory. But with the opposition party to the Sierra Leone People's Party, there has been a split in the party. A splinter group has been formed, which means that while the other side you have 28 candidates and an incumbent deciding to support one, for the other party you have another group also coming out from it. So you realize that for both parties there are disgruntled members for each of the parties.
And is that likely to affect their fortunes in this election?
It weakens the party, particularly for the governing party, and especially with their landscape. I mean, it's a country that is just recovering from the Ebola epidemic that hit them so hard. There are also lots of talk about issues of corruption, and you expect the opposition party to take advantage and seek to canvass for votes, relying on the issue of corruption. So that is another issue that has also come up. But with regards to the campaign itself, there have been some reported cases of violence. Major campaign issues include the poor state of the economy, chronic youth unemployment, corruption scandals, and allegations of dual citizenships have all come up with regards to the election as well.
So today we know that our former president is leading the Commonwealth mission, observer mission there. What has he been talking about?
You know, he performed a similar function in Kenya, and in his address to the people, when he addressed the political parties, the Electoral Commission, among others, he talked about the fact that it's not just about peace being a task of just the Electoral Commission, because apart from they organizing it, it's up to the political actors to also accept results if need be. But more importantly, they have to have an active role in the process in monitoring. So they've encouraged all parties to be at the stations to monitor as they are allowed in law. But more importantly, they should be willing to allow peace prevail. In cases where you have disagreements, the process allows you to register those disagreements rather than tend to use violence to solve that problem. So that is what former President Mahama has been communicating in Sierra Leone. In
the recent Liberia elections, we saw that there was a runoff, and then there was some delay due to some issues. Even in other parts of Africa, we've seen that as well. In Kenya, for example, we saw the issue with Raila Odinga and all that.
In fact, he's still the people's president.
Exactly. So with this particular election happening today, are we picking any signals? Is there likely to be a delay, a runoff, based on what is happening on the ground?
Well, what we are hearing so far is going to be a keenly contested election. The reason being that, I mean, unlike the past where the 2 parties have been very dominant, a third force has come up. There are people who also feel that the governing party should not be given a second chance. They've been in power for close to 10 years, so they feel that, I mean, someone else should come in. But as to whether they are going for the Sierra Leone People's Party or they are going for the other splinter group that has also come up remains to be seen. So it tells you that the governing party does not have a firm grip. So if anything is to be expected, if they are able to, I mean, retain stay on in power, that is having the new guy who is coming in, the former foreign affairs minister, being elected again, it will still be a close call. So in terms of a runoff, it remains a possibility. If in the extreme sense the governing party wins the polls, it will be by a close margin.
And we also know that the ECOWAS, the AU and the UN have all been speaking about this particular election. What
their representatives are in the country monitoring the process, and they have talked about the fact that it is a very interesting one. In fact, a statement that was released says they welcome the commitment expressed by the Sierra Leonean stakeholders for the holding of democratic, transparent, and credible polls in line with national and international frameworks. So more importantly, they are also looking out for the results and the transition that takes place afterwards, especially if there is to be a shift in power from a governing party to opposition one.
Thank you very much, Joseph Akableva, with details of the Sierra Leonean elections happening today. We'll bring you more. We'll be following it keenly. This is Joy News. So take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll bring you more. So let me take you to Sierra Leone, because today voters are going to the polls to elect the successor of President Ernest Bai Koroma after he served the maximum 2 terms. Today's election is the 4th since civil war ended in 2002. I've got a journalist from Sierra Leone, Eric Kawa. He joins me on the line. Hello, Eric.
Yes. Hello,
how are you and how is Sierra Leone?
Okay, Sierra Leone is cool, it's calm, as we all know that the country is observing another polls, the second multi-tier elections, and the communities are all much more organized and mobilized. Lots of people are going to different polling centers to ensure that they cast their ballot for the next president, parliamentarians, as well as the mayors, the mayors of different districts, and councillors for different communities as well.
And Eric, prior to today, there were some issues of violence in some parts of Sierra Leone. What are you picking up today at the various polling centers?
Okay, basically, the polling centers I visited this morning around the western area urban, precisely I'm at Aberdeen at the moment, and I've been to other areas around. I haven't seen any issue of violence, though we got reports this morning about some people not actually in a state of violence, but because the queue was so long and the process was so slow, so some of them wanted to go back home. So saying that they would not vote anymore because of the queue is so long. So that is one of the issues. But the issue of violence, I haven't got any report as of now of any violence around anywhere, just that maybe the system is slow, or maybe the processes, people whose name were supposed to be on a particular alphabet, because they separated each and every one from different alphabets, starting from A to Z, and others might go to where their names are, but they can't find their names on that register, so they have to refer them to another place. So far, in the centers I've visited this morning, those are the issues that have been experiencing, but no issue of violence as of now.
Now, we hear that this is a keenly contested election. I'm sure that there've definitely been some polls ahead of the elections. What are the polls saying?
I couldn't get you clear. Can you come back again?
I'm just saying that we are picking up that this is a keenly contested election. But on the ground, what are the polls saying?
Okay, basically, it's supposed to be a kind of mobilization, and we see lots of, it's a highly contested election, as you mentioned. Yes, we see a lot of the presidential candidates, all of them being hopeful of winning the elections, and namely we have the ruling party, whose candidate is Samoa Kamara. We have the main opposition, who's having Julius Madabio, retired brigadier, and also the fourth, who is Dr. Kande Kole Yumkela, who is the former boss of UNIDO. So the contest is kind of tight between those people, and we see a lot of supporters around coming to cast their votes in different polling centers in favor of their candidates to ensure that things work out for them. But yes, prior to this time, many people were scared of violence, whether because the tension was so high, actually, many people were concerned about the rate of violence. Just that this morning we got another report saying that there was a need for more security to be sent in one of the areas that is supposed to be Grafton, but they only have 5 police officers at the time I got the report, and it were women who were at that place, women police officers, and they needed to have more soldiers or more security personnel that could also be at the place to help in giving the security and the support to the people who are in those different centers.
And Eric, finally, before you leave, what time are the polls closing for this particular election?
Sorry?
What time does voting end?
Okay, voting is supposed to end at 5 p.m. It started 7 a.m. this morning, and it's supposed to end at 5 p.m. today.
All right, great. We'll reach you later for more updates on the election. That's Eric Kawa. He's a Sierra Leonean journalist giving us some updates on the election. Do stay with us here on the Joy News channel. We'll bring you more on this particular one. We'll take a quick breather for business news to stay.